What's up, everyone? It's N12 back again with another light novel review. This time, not only am I going to be reviewing one light novel, I'm reviewing two, for the specific reason that they are within an arc together. Now, on top of the review, that's only going to be part of this video, as I'm going to try doing a spoiler section at the end, for anyone who has already read the book and maybe wants to see my thoughts on specific parts. But before I get into actual review stuff and all that, I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping. It's been it's been a while since the first video came out, and the main reason for that was one, I wanted to give it time so I could get feedback on that first book, and two, the writing and editing section of this was I decided to do more time on both of those because I felt like specifically the writing time where I write my scripts and actually spend time recording, I felt like I didn't give enough time to that on the first book, so I wanted to give more time onto that here. And editing just takes a while. And then I also wanted to add in the spoiler segment, so I had to write even more on top of wanting to write a lot already. And with that, this is my review of Volume 2 and Volume 3 of 86, collectively known as Run Through the Battlefront. Just like Volume 1, they are written by Asato, with illustrations by Shirabi and mechanical design by 1-4. They are licensed for release in the West by Yen Press, specifically the Yenon imprint, and they are translated by Roman Lampin. So, what are Volume 2 and 3? Because one thing that I need to make clear is Volume 2 and 3 take place during the epilogue of Volume 1. So for those who have read Volume 1, the epilogue starts right after Spearhead Squadron went on the special reconnaissance mission and got past Ray. And then it time skips, I believe it was 2 years. It may have been one. It was in that 1 to 2 year range. Following Lena on the Republic of San Magnolia side. And it tells like these little things about how there's this Federal Republic of Giad who came in and kind of saved the Republic of San Magnolia right at its end, right before it fell, and then Lena eventually volunteers to join the Federal Republic of Giad, which I'm going to call the Federacy from now on. And the book ends on a scene of her re-meeting Spearhead Squadron in person for the first time. Now, Volumes 2 and 3 follow Spearhead Squadron's version of that, where it starts and goes through the story of how they joined the Federal Republic of Giad, what they were doing during all that time, and how they are commanders in the Federacy's military. So, it's really interesting because these two books have this main storyline of they're chasing a specific legion. I won't get into details because that's spoilers, I'll talk about that in the spoiler section, but they're following a specific legion unit for most of the book that's causing a lot of destruction for the Federacy, but also because of Shin's abilities, he's able to know they're also attacking the Republic. So this specific legion, so that he not only is trying to save the Federacy, he's also trying to save the Republic. And in the end, this leads to kind of this question that he has to ask himself of, why should I keep doing this? And it's a question that's posed very much in Volume 2, but doesn't get answered till the end of Volume 3 for him. Whereas, with pretty much everyone else in Spearhead Squadron where this question is posed, they kind of still have their answer, because for a lot of Spearhead Squadron, that answer was, we fight because our honor is in fighting, pretty much. And it's where they belong. And that's very important in Volume 2, especially in chapters 2 to 3, where it kind of, chapter 3 especially, they're all given this chance to go out and live in the Federacy for about a month. And then they all have to make the decision of, do they go back to the army, or do they continue on these paths that they were learning by living in the Federacy? And Shin, he, almost the entire time he's in the Federacy, he's always thinking about the battlefield. He's always thinking about, why does he continue fighting? But because he wants to, but he doesn't know why. Because after he killed Rey, he kind of finished his life's mission, or at least what he thought was his life's mission. and he had nowhere to kind of go beyond that. He had nothing to kind of push him. And that's when we're introduced to, I'd say, the biggest new character, that being Frederica Rosenfort. I almost forgot her last name. And Frederica is this little 12-year-old girl who is almost a mirror image of Shin. And the big story, the big through-line story of volumes 2 and 3 focuses on Frederica's her version of Shin's quest in volume 1, where she's trying to hunt down a specific legion that she thinks she has ties to. And she ends up kind of recruiting Spearhead Squadron and kind of goes with them into the battlefield as this mascot, which I'm not going to get into mascots too much because they're very weird in this book. Basically, the girls who go out with military units and basically keep the military units from abandoning the post, but Frederica is also way more important than that, and she kind of helps lead them in certain ways, because similar to Shin, she has her own unique abilities, which I'll get more into in the spoiler section, because I don't want to spoil what her abilities are here, but I will say they were my biggest problem in volume 2, but my biggest problem also got rectified in volume 3, where her abilities kind of were given certain limits that makes her ability way more fair in my opinion, and doesn't really ruin certain parts of the book. Now, I've talked a lot about volume 2, but volume 3 so volume 2 is a lot slower than volume 3, and it focuses a lot more on the internal thoughts, less big battles, more internal battles within the characters. And then you get to volume 3, and volume 3 is pretty much cover to cover action. There's still a few areas where they go more into the personal psyche, and especially with Shin, who is still trying to find his answer, whereas everyone else in Spearhead Squadron has found the answer for why they keep fighting. Shin's still trying to find that answer. And the book ends on this pretty high note, and I actually really enjoyed the end of this book. My biggest problem with both of these books, though, is that there's almost no Lena, and I do very much enjoy that they focused on Spearhead Squadron. I do enjoy that because the book is called the 86, and they are the 86. But you get Lena in the prologue and epilogue of each book, and that's it. You don't get it anywhere else, and I really wish we could have seen a little bit more flesh out of what she was doing during that time gap. Even if it was just an interlude in the middle of the book, that would have been much better. But just like Volume 1, I do want to praise the art. Shirabi does amazing work with the arts in this book. Every single thing is so detailed, it's so nice. And I even the new characters and how they... And this is also character design for Astrasto. I think they also helped the character design writer. But the character design mixed with Shirabi's work helps just contrast certain things within the characters. If you look on the cover here, this is Shin, right there, wearing all black kind of, but then right behind him is Frederica, who is in all white. But it kind of gives this contrast, and almost the same thing happens on the 86, except the volume 3 cover, except he's wearing camo and Lena's wearing the blue. And they give some good contrast there. And then these covers automatically also contrast. You should have seen that in my title page, where they are two halves of the same picture, just altered at the halfway point. It's great. But even the individual arts, they all look amazing. As for 1-4's mechanical work on this series, there's far less new mechs introduced here, totaling at 4. 3 of them are Federacy vehicles, and one of them is a Legion vehicle. I'm not going to get into the Legion vehicle here or the last Federacy vehicle revealed, because those are both pretty big spoilers, and I don't want to get into them until the spoiler section. But for the other 2 Federacy vehicles, they're introduced pretty much smack dab, literally first pages. The first page of Volume 2 is the mechanical work for one of them. My light's reflecting off, I'm sorry about that. And then, let's see, the second one is introduced on page 11. So, yeah, these are the Regenleif and the Vanaganda. I think those are both German. I don't speak German, so sorry for my pronunciation. But the Regen Leaf is basically the Federacy's version of the Juggernaut. There's even to the point in the book where it said, like, they had the basis for it before they got the hands on Spearhead Squadron and their leftover Juggernauts, but they weren't able to finish it until they got the Juggernauts, and they kind of mixed the Juggernauts into them. Whereas the Vanaganda is a much more bulkier vehicle. It's probably, I think based off what they've said, I think it's the bulkiest non like Dinosauria level vehicle, because it's much more like a modern tank, but with the vehicle mechanisms of the Juggernauts, where they have like the spider legs and they roll along the ground instead of being on treads. But it's 2-man, heavily armored with a very big gun on the back, so it's pretty much just a tank. And I do like the evolution of the Federacy's vehicles. They feel more human than the Juggernauts, and I like that, because it's meant to show how the Federacy, they put more emphasis on, if you don't have to be fast, you have to take the hits, and you have to be able to take the hits. And I really enjoy that part where you get a lot more of the usual person from the Federacy going into the army, and that's a really big part of actually Shin's character in the army, through characters like Eugene, who is a very important character in the beginning of Volume 2, leading into Shin's kind of problem with trying to figure out what he's supposed to be doing on. So these two books were both enjoyable reads. I would not give them as high of a score as 1. I still think 1 was just a magnificent book on its own. These, together, I would give these like an 8 out of 10. I'd probably give Volume 2 a 7.5 out of 10, and Volume 3 an 8.5 out of 10. They were both really good still. And the biggest problem was the very little Lena in the books. Sorry, I just really like Lena, okay? She's a great character. And that is definitely my biggest problem with the books. But for now, if you have not read the books, I would recommend leaving here. I gave you my scores of 7.5 and 8.5 respectively, or an 8 out of 10 together. Just like last time, you can buy these books on Amazon, Book Depository. If you're in the US, Barnes & Noble has them. Trying to think of other big bookstores, I can't think of them off the top of my head. I'll leave links for Amazon Book Depository in the description. And for now, I'm going to head into the spoiler section. So just another warning, if you have not read the book, you can close the video here. Now, I hope the rest of you here are ready for spoilers from both volumes 2 and 3 of 86. Now, before I go into actual spoilers, again, reiterating kind of everything, I wanted to do this here so I could talk about actual spoiler things, and what kind of influenced my decision on how I enjoyed these books and all that. So, first off, I'm going to kind of go through the books in chronological order as they go through, so starting with stuff in Volume 2, Chapter 1 and all that. The book starts out a few months after Spearhead Squadron has already found the Federal Republic of Gion, and they have at this point already been brought into the Federacy's military, and they are working kind of solo from each other, but they're all part of this bigger squadron called Nordic Squadron, and they are going through and they're basically helping at certain points in the war front for the Confederacy, acting as like almost smaller groups that can go in when the rest of the military cannot help on the front lines. So like in the first book, there's a squadron that's being attacked, and they basically cannot, they request backup if they're dying, and the backup that they get is Nordic Squadron, specifically a version led by Shin, and then they come in, help them defeat them, and then they go back out. And one of the things that this chapter does is it introduces us to kind of the two biggest points of this book, that being Frederica, the new character, and then Shin, and it also introduces Shin's struggle that he has throughout all of Volume 2 and Volume 3. So for Frederica, especially in Volume 2, I did not like her character as much. Like, she isn't necessarily a bad character. Like, a lot of her stuff I didn't mind. She's this young 12-year-old girl who was the previous princess of the Empire of Giadian, the Federal Republic of Giad. Basically, they overthrew the empire, and now they're leading it. And she was the old princess, and similar to Shin, she has a special ability, and it's kind of explained that all people that like are kind of along the bloodline of, I think they called, I can't remember the exact two names. It's like the Onyx and Irix or something like that. They're like two of the races. Basically, all of them have like these special abilities, but Shin and Frederica's are kind of more prominent than other people's. So, how Shin can hear the voices of the Legion who have assimilated human minds into them. Frederica, what she can do is she can see kind of the current and the past of people she knows. And this is kind of where my biggest problem with Volume 2 came in, was in Volume 2 this was not explained very well, and it kind of threw it out there as like, if she knows you, she can see your entire past, she can see your entire present, and it kind of, in my opinion, got rid of like a lot of the threat that like maybe some future plot had a like double agent in it. Like if she just knew them, she'd be like, oh hey, yeah, they're a double agent, and gets rid of all of the tension from the scene. But it was used in this book to kind of explain how they knew that her old bodyguard Kiria Nozen, who is a long lost relative to Shin, he was assimilated and now works under the Legion, and Frederica is brought in kind of because she wants to put Kiria to rest, and she tries to employ the help of Spearhead Squadron to help her do that, because she sees Shin's past, knows that he killed his brother, and she's like, I want you to do what you did for your brother for me, so I can take down the person who I used to love. So that, and then but in Volume 3 they do rectify my problem, that gets attention by the fact that they introduced this limit onto Frederica's powers. And that limit is being that if she sees someone's past, they have to be thinking about it. So if they're not thinking about the past, then she can't see the past, which definitely helps put a limit on how much they can give it attention. Because if, like in my example earlier of a double agent, if the double agent is not thinking about his past as a double agent, she would never know. So that helps keep some tension in the story. So moving on from Frederica, but we get Shin's whole ordeal throughout this book, and that being, he has killed his brother Ray, he has completed his life's mission, and now he's kind of just wandering aimlessly with no real goal or motive beyond the very surface goals. Like right now, it's the surface goal of finding Kiria, killing him because he's a high-level Legion. That's his goal right now, but he looks past it and he says, I don't know why I'm still fighting. And this is shown in the scene where Eugene dies, because there's this character that's introduced, Eugene. He's a part of the military. It's explained that he knew Shin before Shin went into the Federal Republic of Giad military, and then his vehicle, his Vanaganda, gets blown up, and Shin finds him basically laying in a lot of pain, and he asks Shin to euthanize him basically, and Shin does, and it comes into conflict with one of the other characters that comes in later, or two of the characters, one being Eugene's younger sister, Nina, who at the beginning of the second book actually sends Shin a letter, because she finds out Shin is the one that killed her brother, and she sends him a letter. It's like, why did you kill him? Why didn't you die instead of him? And then you also have Marcel, who's the one who tells Nina, but he was also a part. He also knew both Eugene and Shin, and he blames Shin as well for Eugene's death. And Shin has to deal with this question of, why is he keeping on the role of the Reaper and killing and bringing, like, because his role in San Magnolia was he would bring forward the names of everyone who died on his team. He would keep bringing them forward, and then that ended at the final resting spot, where he kind of made this bigger memorial. They made this bigger memorial for it. And Shin, after that, kind of and he does that. He kills his brother. He's kind of like, I've brought everyone forward that I had to bring. I've killed my brother. Why am I continuing to do this stuff? And then all this is expanded out to the rest of the team in chapters 2 and 3 of Volume 2, where it goes back in time to right after they leave on the special reconnaissance mission, past when they killed Ray, and it goes through the decision to rejoin the Confederacy military. And these two chapters are probably my favorite chapters in this entire story, because they really, especially chapter 3, but chapter 2, one brings Ray back from the dead in a way that foreshadows something that happens later in the book, in the story arc, in that Legion shepherds have like a second body that they transfer their consciousness into when the first body dies. So Ray is still alive at the beginning of this book, but he's mentally like realized that Shin is still alive and trying to move forward. So instead of helping the Legion, Ray ends up helping Shin against the Legion, and at the end Ray dies again, killing him entirely. But before he dies, they're able to get this scene in between Ray and Shin that gives Shin more closure onto Ray's death, which was a very nice touch. And while I'm not someone who likes resurrection like that, especially in the book right after they died, I felt this one worked, and it helped set up something with Kirya later in Volume 3. And then it goes into them first meeting the Federal Republic of Giad, and in that time, it kind of shows that the Federal Republic of Giad is not all black and white, good. They are very much gray, where there's multiple people in the Confederacy who don't trust the Spearhead Squadron. They don't trust that they came from San Magnolia. They don't, even though they don't know anything about San Magnolia and what they've done, they still think, oh, these people could possibly be traitors, and they kind of hold them captive as that. And it shows like the Federal Republic of Giad isn't all black and white, good, and San Magnolia is evil. It's very much a lot of grays, and it helps build the tension in the story. And then Volume 3, they get adopted by the acting commander of the Federal Republic of Giad, Ernst, and he basically takes them to the capital, and they get, I think they said a month in the book. They have a month where they're just free to do whatever they want, find what they want to do in life. And this book really helps separate every character from each other, because you kind of see where everyone would go if they went in the military. You see Kurina was much more fashion-based. Theo and Anju were kind of, if I remember correctly, Theo was going the art path, and he was drawing a lot, he was doing all that. And Anju was learning more about cooking, and then Raiden got a lot into tech. But you also see Shin's story here, and Shin continues where every single day, instead of going into this different field, he would go to libraries and he would read about wars in the Confederacy and the Empire before that. He would keep reading about war and continuing that. And then at the end of chapter 3, they all make the decision that the place where while they all loved this month where they could be their own selves, they could all go their own paths, they all collectively come together at the end and say, but our home is on the battlefield. That's where we're supposed to be. And so they rejoin the military. So then we get into kind of the formation of Nordlicht, which is the own thing. And then at the end of the book, Shin realizes that the Legion is about to launch a massive scale assault on not only the Federal Republic of Gion, but the neighbors to the north, to the south, and the Republic of San Magnolia to the west. And so he kind of warns the higher ups, but he's a bit too late, and they get pretty much demolished in this first fight. And then the railgun unit that we saw a little bit of in Volume 1, the very far range attacker, comes in and destroys not only the main base that Shin and most of them are in at the time, but also goes and breaks the giant wall, I can't remember its exact name, in the Republic of San Magnolia. You get the epilogue of this book that has both Shin and Lena's perspective, because Lena's realized they just broke a thing and we have to go fight, so she activates something you saw in Volume 1 in the epilogue, where it mentions how she resonated with all of the pilots and she got them all to follow her command. You see her activating that command here in this book, which was a nice touch. And then you see Shin and Frederica barely survive only because Frederica warned Shin in time. And then Volume 3 starts. And Volume 3 is basically a giant war book. It's almost non-stop fighting. There's not too much to go here, but we get more of Shin's inner struggles, finding out what he wants to do. And eventually we get to the fight with Kiryu, the first fight, and they almost kill him, except he transfers into his second body at the last second, which is something that was brought up originally with Rei. So he transfers in, and then they have to start chasing him across the entirety of Legion space. And in that time, you get this really good confrontation between Raiden and Shin, where Raiden kind of accuses Shin of not wanting to let them fight with him, and that he's taking everything too far away. He doesn't have a path, so he is throwing himself out there almost in an attempt to die, because he doesn't know where to go from there. And Shin kind of accepts this, but he also realizes he doesn't like give any way of, oh, I'll change, I won't do this anymore. He just accepts it and moves on. And as they are catching up to Kiryu, they start getting kind of separated from each other. First it's Kurina, if I remember correctly, then, or yeah, I think it's actually Anju first, and then Theo gets left behind, then Kurina, then Raiden, and then it's finally just Kiryu versus Shin, who also has Federica in his vehicle because Federica can't go on. And you get this fight in between them where Shin's basically outmatched. Kiryu's vehicle, his Legion, is just completely, it has a bunch of around so you get this final fight between Shin and Kiryu, and Shin is completely outmatched. Kiryu's Legion, his railgun type, the Morpho, that's right, they call it the Morpho. And Kiryu's Morpho is quite heavily armed in that it has its railgun, but also has a bunch of anti-ground Vulcan cannons on both sides. And Shin's like, oh, I can just take out one side. But Kiryu shows that he's also a great close-range pilot and like fighter, and he jumps the Morpho and switches its side. That Shin suddenly is taking on 3 more cannons that he can't deal with. And then you get this really cool scene where a voice cuts into his para-raid, Shin's para-raid, and is like, you there, the voice is like, hey you ran a vehicle, get back, we're gonna bombard it, and then you can attack it again. And this is where you find out that Shin and the Spearhead Squadron has chased the Morpho, Kiryu, so far that they are now on the outskirts of the Republic of San Magnolia's territory, back where they began. And you have to, and so Shin ends up beating Kiryu, and everything kind of cheers up. And then at the end, you see Lena walk out onto the battlefield because she has actually gone onto the battlefield with the troops. She's not staying back. And she and Shin have this small dialogue conversation where she explains that she's been chasing after Spearhead Squadron. And of course, she doesn't realize it's Shin she's talking to because his vehicle is messed up and his speaker's basically cutting out all the time, and she doesn't realize it's his voice. And so Shin, after hearing her say this, kind of realizes what his path forward is supposed to be, and that he's supposed to lead, he's supposed to make where she's going a good place, and that kind of pushes him to keep going. And that's basically where the book ends. The epilogue is the same exact, ends in the same place as Volume 1, with them reuniting in front of the Spearheads, the 86th Memorial from Spearhead Squadron. And they do extend it slightly, and basically confirming that she was like, oh, I always chased after you. And he's like, I know. She's like, from now on I'll fight by your side. Oh, one thing I did forget to mention. In Volume 2, towards the end, they actually resurrect Fido as well. Which I'm not the biggest fan of resurrections, but Fido's resurrection hit me good because I liked Fido in Volume 1, and just, I was sad when he died at the end. And then you get to see it here when he comes back, and he's still going to be with them, and that's great, because I loved his interaction with Shin. So yeah. But with that, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you guys have any thoughts, this is the first time I've done a spoiler thing, so if you have any thoughts on that and want to let me know, leave it in the comments below. And with that, I hope you guys have a good day wherever you are, no matter what time it is. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. And I will talk to you guys all on the next review.